This should be the right place. The orb's definitely there. I have no doubts about that. The unfortunate thing here is that it's occupied by more people than I was expecting. Even more than the one I was hoping wouldn't be here. They're rather powerful presences too. But all that means is that I need to give myself the advantage.
Son of a bitch!
I mean, I'd imagine that a residential power grid would probably have difficulty with whatever kind of supercomputer it would take to alter reality.
Shut up, nerd. My mainframe's fine. I'm just thinking about the fact that you're gonna have difficulty completing that commentary. Could have sworn the weather forecast said it was supposed to be partly cloudy.
I mean, yeah, unless you've got some way on your mainframe for me to see the video, record my lines, edit everything, then it's gonna be pretty impossible for me to finish.
Oh, that's his name. Fuck. Oh, right. Dumbass. Yeah, I'm on a separate power source that's connected straight to the divinity. Of course I wouldn't trust a mortal power supply. Are you kidding me? Just connect your shit and we'll get back to it.
I feel like I should have several questions at this moment, but I have a feeling if I ask any of them, you're just going to answer with your mother.
Hey, you're finally catching on.
Anyway, those were the two big issues that really bothered me, so here's just some miscellaneous points that I took issue with.
And I hate these Among Us live streams. Like seriously, Among Us live streams are so boring. And not even Whooper time. Even Sonic Song 182's Among Us live streams are boring. And Sonic Song 182 is a Sonic YouTuber that I actually respect. Even if there's awesome Sonic characters in Among Us live streams, I still won't fucking watch them all the way through.
It's a video game. Were you expecting a video game to not have live streams? Fuck me, man. I guess Twitch isn't a platform. Sorry, Caden, you don't exist.
I have literally no idea how you got from him saying he does not enjoy Among Us live streams to you thinking he's saying he's surprised there are live streams at all. That is very clearly not what he was saying.
I can at least partially see where this interpretation comes from, but part of that is it coming from a fairly socially inept place. It was more so a statement to point out how dumb it is to complain about live streams existing. He literally says at the beginning he's sick of the live streams. Granted, I could have done more to show how this indicates how he cares more about the opinions of individuals than he implies, since saying you're sick of live streams indicates that you want people who enjoy Among Us and want to stream their games to stop. But Lord knows you'll try to spin that. And I actually cover him saying he's bothered by people making videos about Among Us, and I make the point there where it comes through much stronger. In addition, why the fuck are you watching a live stream of a game you don't like and expecting to enjoy it?
I don't know, Boon. Why would people click on reviews of video games they don't like and expect to enjoy them? Or watch a television series based around movies they don't like and expect to enjoy them? Or watch commentaries on videos they don't like and expect to enjoy them? You see my issue with this point?
No, because those aren't the same thing. Well, he did point out a couple of individual examples where he might expect to enjoy the live stream regardless, involving characters or creators that he enjoys and enjoying their commentary rather than the game itself. That's not where the point starts, and I addressed the idea that he would be inherently less likely to enjoy an Among Us stream, since his wording implies to me that he was watching streams from people he didn't have this kind of connection with. But back to how AVGN, MST3K, and Boon Canon itself are not the same as Among Us streams. Among Us streams are not, by definition, making fun of the game, whereas it's part of the formula of all three of these other things that the topic of discussion gets insulted. And even then, not necessarily. That's why when you heard I was making this video, you were looking forward to me slinging mud your way, you chuckle fuck. And by the way, I do point out in the very next interjection how you can likely be watching this stream for the personalities and not the game itself. Which, by the way, is technically a contradiction on my part. And yet somehow you don't call out the contradiction that actually exists in my video. I'm covering my own video better than you. What are you doing?
You are quite literally engaging in a caustic medium right now, a medium where your success is entirely based on people who do not like a thing watching you talk about why you don't like a thing and wondering why anyone would watch something about another thing they don't like.
Except right now he's talking about Among Us live streams, which are gameplay of Among Us as it's happening. That is very different from the caustic mediums that you're talking about. Those streamers are in a symbiotic medium with Among Us, not a caustic one. You would have a point if I was saying this when he was talking about the plush video. Maybe, but not when I'm saying it here.
It's just characters or whoever playing a shitty fucking game like Among Us. It's boring. Like, these live streams, just like the game itself, are boring.
And you just explained what the appeal of Among Us live streams are. It's not so much about the game as the personalities of the people playing the game. It's a just chatting stream with a gameplay structure, guy. Combined with the fact that you oftentimes have multiple popular people on these streams all playing together, and it's no wonder people would gravitate towards it, even if the gameplay itself isn't entirely of their interest.
Okay, first off, I am not entirely sure how that connected to what Sladester said. You said he accidentally stumbled across why these streams are popular. I would just assume it's because it's a popular game in the first place, but okay. By calling them boring. What?
It's, right at the beginning of my clip.
It's just characters or whoever playing a shitty fucking game like Among Us.
And then when I speak, I'm pretty much immediately talking about personalities. Funny how he said stuff after that, and I left it in, and when I didn't repeat what he said, you missed the point? Almost like there might have been a reason to repeat what he said here, huh? I don't know what to tell you. I thought people would remember 10 seconds in the past. I guess I was wrong.
But as for your point itself, Sladester specifically said that he did try watching Among Us live streams with personalities that he liked and still didn't enjoy them.
Did I say that he specifically would? No, dingus. The whole point was to say why the streams were popular, not why he in particular should like them. Part of what I'm doing in this part is explaining the popularity of Among Us, which doesn't necessarily refute what Sladester is saying in and of itself, but since when does every word out of my mouth have to be a direct refutation of the person I'm covering? Why can't I use this caustic medium to make my own points every once in a while?
Because you're parental meat sack.
And there it is. There's the joke I was expecting to happen this entire time. Good to see that we're still on the same wavelength.
Even Sonic Song 182's Among Us live streams are boring. And Sonic Song 182 is a Sonic YouTuber that I actually respect. Even Super Mario Logan, a YouTuber I used to respect, made a video, a plus video on Among Us. Seriously, these stupid ass trends on the internet go way too far.
How dare someone make a video on something popular in order to get views? Like, I get that you're saying that it shouldn't be popular, but beyond the blatant contradiction that people aren't allowed to make videos about things they like if you don't like it, therefore again showing that your claim of not caring what other people like is a blatant lie.
Oh sure, never mind how when you cut back to Sladester, the very first thing we hear him say is,
Logan probably made that video just to please the frickin' Among Us fans.
Meaning the issue at hand isn't that Logan likes the game, but that he's jumping on a bandwagon for views. If you ignore that, the point works just fine.
How does he know that? How do you know that? How would I know that he knows that? None of us really know anything here.
So, in other words, typical mortal shit.
What? Fucking... Sure, I guess. Anyway, now you could say that neither one of us should be making assumptions, but, well, my assumption doesn't matter because my point stands regardless. See, Slatester's assumption calls Logan a sellout no matter what Logan's actual opinion is, thus attributing ill intent to really anyone who makes an Among Us video. Everyone's guilty until proven innocent if they make an Among Us video of just cashing in. Does that sound like the stance of someone who doesn't care if other people like it? Certainly doesn't to me, and that's why I call it out the way that I do.
You go around everywhere on the internet posting shit like sus or imposter or whatever. You're not cool. You have no life. You have no life at all if you go around doing this shit, saying all this shit.
Even though it's inherently a social game? Alright, so going through like any possible interpretation of having no life that doesn't make sense. It's a multiplayer game that is about social deduction. Now,
you do know he's not talking about people who are playing the game at this point, right? He's talking about people who are mindlessly regurgitating memes that exist because of the game.
actually, I didn't know that. He said nothing that separated people playing the game from people posting memes about the game, which is kind of an extension of the point about content creation. So if he was meaning to separate these things, then he could have made it much more clear if that was his intent. Oh, but you're probably thinking that it's just his language being a little bit unclear. Therefore, I could have handled it better by saying that he was being vague, therefore establishing the reason I would think he was just talking about a specific part of the fan base, right? Except my earlier point already did that. The way he worded himself was to say, if you go around saying sus or imposter, you have no life. When combined with the point that I made earlier, which you addressed out of order without even fucking playing it, by the way, which is very relevant to the way that you mischaracterized that, I'm proving that this is, as a black and white statement, untrue. Especially when I isolate the type of people he's probably actually talking about and indicating that this isn't specific to Rick and Morty. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, Sonic. I mean, fuck, Among Us. Among Us is the one we're talking about. Now, the one interpretation I can see working is if that's all someone talks about or all someone does. And sure, being single-minded to the point of eschewing other topics is, in fact, an interpretation of someone having no life. That applies to anything, though. Funny how you don't play the part where I address the thing that you're saying. Now, I won't go as far as to say that this means that your video is unscripted, even though I think you've said that you generally don't script these videos before, but I'll put it this way. This means that either you're going unscripted or your script is 100% grade A porcupine cut.
You don't need to play a game in order to know a meme from it. That's just not how this works.
That's how he actually cuts the audio in his video, by the way. And again, you're right. You don't. I'll dissect that in a moment, but remember, he is talking about the Among Us fan base as a whole and anyone who is posting any memes. His statement is that if you post these memes at all, you have no life, which I am proving false by pointing out that if you get it from playing the game yourself, you are getting it by way of social interaction, because that's what the game is, especially since sus isn't even said as part of the game. As for proving if you're posting the meme and don't play the game to be inherently social, that's what your next point is, actually, so we'll just do that there.
TV Tropes calls this memetic mutation something which Among Us is so associated with, it has its own subpage for it.
Ah, yes. Memes. The DNA of the soul. They shape our will. They are the culture. They are everything we pass on. Ephraim, how does memetic mutation happen? Do you know the etymological origin of the word meme? To quote Richard Dawkins from The Selfish Gene, the book in which he coined the term meme, most of what is unusual about a man can be summed up in one word: culture. I use the word not in its snobbish sense, but as a scientist uses it. Cultural transmission is analogous to genetic transmission in that, although basically conservative, it can give rise to a form of evolution. In other words, a meme is a form of cultural evolution that is derived from social behaviors. Thus why the use of the term meme in relation to the internet is a recontextualization of something, and why someone intending to create a meme will often fail. Memes aren't created, they must be adapted. That's why Millhouse is not a meme, while Millhouse is not a meme is a meme. Now, here's the kicker to all this. You may have noticed that I used a quote from Dawkins that doesn't use the word meme. Well, that's because I pulled that quote from somewhere else that posted it online. Do you know where I got it from? Couple of inches below your screenshot. Yeah, you should know that memes are a social construct, even if you weren't supposed to be an intellectual and was already familiar with these concepts. It's right in front of you during your own fucking research. And you bring it up later. Wow.
Oh, hey, would you look at that? The power's back on. Isn't that great? Fantastic for you. Get the fuck off my grid now.
Well, wait a minute. What if the power just shuts back off again? Isn't there like a storm or something?
Yeah, it turns out partly cloudy is both the dude's name and the weather forecast. Look, don't ask me. His parents are apparently idiots. You should be fine. It was probably a squirrel or something.
No, that sounded like lightning. That did not sound like a squirrel.
Oh, and how would you know?
I'm from the South. If there's one thing I know, it's the sound of a squirrel getting into a power converter.
Whatever. Just hook your shit back up to your own shit. Whatever it is, it's clearly gone now.
You're kidding. A backup power supply connected directly to... Since when does he have access to... Suppose he's a little bit more powerful than I anticipated. Fine, I guess the old-fashioned tactic will just have to work. It's just all the more reason he doesn't need the damn Dorb anyway.
You know, to my last recollection, I could have sworn that you were in jail.
Interesting seeing you here, prosecutor.
Mr. Stormblood, the case is long over. Which kind of brings me back to my original statement, actually. To my recollection, you were, in fact, put in prison for your crimes. And it's far too early for even a parole hearing, much less for you to get parole, if this is what you're doing with your time outside of the prison.
Here I thought you would have been one of the early ones to know what happened at Federal United Corrections. Did they not tell you about the explosion?
They did. But they also told me that all the prisoners that escaped were recaptured. I mean, other than Boon's frame job, but, you know.
What kind of a name is Boon? That sounds like something someone would use as a fake handle online. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. They miscounted.
So, you're willing to admit that you should be there, but aren't?
Yes, that would technically be correct. Although I would imagine recapture of an incarcerated subject falls a bit out of your job description. District Attorney Shore.
A citizen's arrest isn't?
Then I'd like to see you try.
Actually, both imposter and sus are listed on this page, and I just find this worth pointing out because earlier in the video, Boon essentially denied those phrases counted as Among Us memes for reasons that didn't really make any sense.
Okay, so this is the part where your own research bites you in the ass? Again? So first, at the top of the Memetic mutation page, there's a note that examples should go in the YMMV tab of a works page, which of course, you list these from the Memetic mutation tab of Among Us. But if we were to actually look on the YMMV tab for Among Us, we get this right off the bat. In other words, Yes, memes have their own tab on Among Us's TV tropes page, which at no point did I deny that Among Us had memes in general. Now, before we go into the content that you posted from that page, let's look at what YMMV means. Simply searching YMMV on TV tropes will give us the top 2 results, one of which is a page that has like 1 or 2 paragraphs on it and immediately shows us that saying something is YMMV is a way of calling it subjective. So me providing evidence for why sus and imposter are not Among Us memes is expressing why I have a different opinion. So therefore, you have to debate me on my facts, not on other people thinking otherwise and saying it's an opinion. It also links to the YMMV homepage, which has primarily 2 rules for what makes a particular trope YMMV. The article might call for a value judgment, and your judgment call could be different from another troper's. And the article might be about differences of opinion or audience reaction. Based on the context, the most relevant reason that I might disagree with something on the Among Us memes page is because of a difference in audience reaction. I don't associate these 2 words with Among Us, so they are not Among Us memes for me. But let's dial back a bit. For one, let's look at how sus and imposter are displayed as Among Us memes. Imposter is not listed as a meme. Just because it's a word that's in these other memes doesn't make the word itself a meme, which is the point I was making. In fact, every instance of imposter as a meme is just quoting where the game uses the word imposter, and the actual point is speaking about Among Us mechanics. Even if you go beyond your screenshot, you have imposter of the vent, which involves multiple specific things about Among Us. But let's examine sus because it actually does appear on its own and in pure mutations where the word sus is involved and really nothing else. However, what I said does prove him wrong, and Memetic mutation is the reason why. Remember when I said that the game itself never actually uses sus? Yeah, that's because it doesn't. It is, as I said, just shorthand for suspicious that gets used by players. This is why I made the LOL comparison to my point. Sus is shorthand that previously didn't really have a reason to be general internet slang, but has evolved into it. I provided an example of myself using it as general slang without being associated with Among Us, and I also did something else. Indicated that it was being used in other games where it would be relevant to show that it wasn't isolated in usage, thus showing why someone who plays a lot of games in this genre doesn't have the same memetic association with Among Us to the word in isolation as other people. It's almost like, in order for you in particular to get the idea of what I was saying, I would have needed to repeat it over and over again, thus proving that your whole thing about me insulting my audience's intelligence is justified in the case of one particular critic. But you know what? I didn't even need to point this out here. You know why?
But oh, if a game itself and for live streams weren't already insufferable, I have to deal with a fucking Among Us fanbase everywhere I fucking go, on YouTube and on Discord. Like they post these fucking stupid ass memes, like imposter, sus. Like, oh, this is sus. Oh, imposter.
I mean, if that's the level of memes that you're dealing with, then sure, I could see why. First of all, just saying that something is sus is just shorthand for saying it's suspicious. It's not really a meme. Like in my last video, I said that something MatPat was doing looked sus, but I didn't make any effort to make an Among Us meme out of it. It was just a fast way to express that something was suspicious. Fuck, this has actually gone into other social deduction games. People say sus in those games as well. This is like saying that typing LOL is cringy. It expresses an idea other than just being a meme. The imposter thing could be different from that, though, since it sounds like just calling something an imposter, which is a real word. Because you play my statement for yourself, trying to use what you previously said as a point against it, which I've already proven it isn't, and then proceed to say this.
Which is not how this works in the slightest. I'm sure people were using phrases like, "I am your father," and "Thank you, sir, may I have another," before they appeared in popular movies, those movies being Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back and Animal House respectively. However, those films put those phrases into a very specific context in our heads that eventually entered popular culture.
Which, of course, is an apples to oranges comparison in so many ways. For one, you're comparing a 4 to 7 word phrase with words that are 1 to 3 syllables. That's like saying if I say the word what, I must be making a Stone Cold Steve Austin reference. The word was and is still used in context that have nothing to do with Stone Cold, but it's one of his most popular catchphrases. Therefore, any use of the word as a meme must be a Stone Cold meme in the exact same way it's telling you to take your completely baseless point, shine that sumbitch up real nice, turn it sideways, and stick it straight up your candy ass outright is me making a meme about, I don't know, some guy, I don't think you've heard of him. I think he played Black Adam. To quote someone else that you may have heard of before, though, that's not how this works.
In fact, since I mentioned Animal House, the entire concept of toga parties was popularized by that movie. Obviously, people wore togas before that point. Hell, I'm pretty sure somebody even put them on during a party or held a party revolving around putting them on at one point. However, it was that movie which turned it into an aspect of our popular culture.
Please see my earlier point about how memetic mutation is inherently a your mileage may vary trope, therefore using it as factual evidence of something is completely asinine. Oh, by the way, yeah, someone did wear togas before Animal House. The fucking Greeks. Another thing that you miss is that pop culture is cyclical, so something can be associated with one work in one generation or even region and a completely different work in another. I've got a giant mountain of evidence, a list perhaps, examples of this exact concept from just wrestling. But I'm pretty sure if I went there, then the video would be 12 hours just from me reading off of that list. So you know what? I'll just stick with the Animal House one for now. One of the writers of Animal House got the idea to include it in the movie from the popularity of toga parties in the 50s and 60s. And the idea actually came from Eleanor Roosevelt, who threw one to make fun of people comparing her husband, FDR, to Caesar, which serves to highlight why it's intellectually dishonest to just stop the mutation of language wherever the fuck you feel like it, when all I'm doing is giving reasons why what he said as he presented it is not correlated to Among Us to me.
The term meme was coined by evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, where he uses them as a way to describe how ideas evolve. The new soup is the soup of human culture. We need a name for this new replicator, a noun that conveys the idea of a unit of cultural transmission, or a unit of imitation. My meme comes from a suitable Greek root, but I want a monosyllable that sounds a bit like gene. I hope my classist friends will forgive me if I abbreviate my meme to meme. If it is any consolidation, it could alternatively be thought of as being related to memory or to the French word meme. It should be pronounced to rhyme with cream. The aforementioned TV tropes page even has a quote from The Selfish Gene at its beginning. Said quote reading, "Most of what is unusual about man can be summed up in one word, culture. I use the word not in its snobbish sense, but as a scientist uses it. Cultural transmission is analogous to genetic transmission in that, although basically conservative, it can give rise to a form of evolution." To put it simply, Boon, you don't know how memes work.
Yeah, funny how I gave this whole explanation at the beginning of you talking about the subject, and then provided context to prove that I fucking do, Millhouse.
And even then, your point doesn't make much sense because, while it is true this is a multiplayer game, it's also one where you can just play with random strangers due to the online nature of it. When I think of somebody who has no life, I think of somebody who has, for example, no friends or no connections. Somebody who plays World of Warcraft all day could be argued to have no life, despite the fact that he is playing an online multiplayer MMO where he interacts with other people. Hence why, by the way, if you Google person with no life, one of the first images you'll see is this man from the South Park episode Make Love Not Warcraft, who was playing World of Warcraft obsessively.
For one, I also said it's about social deduction. While cooperation is a part of World of Warcraft, how well you get along with other people on a human level isn't a gameplay mechanic, whereas Among Us is a game about social interaction. Now, of course, you would be correct that if someone were singularly focused and obsessed with Among Us, that is a definition of having no life that makes sense. And the reason I know that it makes sense is because you're about to play me making that exact same fucking argument. The one interpretation I can see working is if that's all someone talks about or all someone does. And sure, being single-minded to the point of eschewing other topics is, in fact, an interpretation of someone having no life. That applies to anything, though.
When did Sladester say otherwise? Fuck, when did he even imply otherwise?
See, now, this point is one that is actually kind of hard for me to come up with a response to. Not because it's right, because that would be really easy. Just say that he's right. And it's not because it's wrong in some nuanced way either. I mean, have you seen the rest of this video? I can bust those out like analogies for things that people do frequently. No. It's because the concept of why I would say this is so obvious. I could never imagine the possibility of even someone that's making a dumb point actually saying what you've said here. But, fine. Sure. When did Sladester imply that his complaint was not a universal one? I mean, generally, if you're complaining about a specific subject for an aspect that applies to literally every other subject in existence, then what that indicates is that your complaint is pointless. It stands to reason that if someone is making a complaint about a subject in a video, they are saying that this thing is, to some degree, unique to the subject, thus why they would even bother pointing it out in the first place. But you know what? None of this matters. I'm about to explain why I said that anyway, because it shows his complaint is generic. And you play me saying this. You continue to immediately show me countering your point in the video you're covering. I would not believe that you scripted a single word of this if you told me that you did. Oh my fuck, this is sloppier than Ric Flair drunk on an airplane. Actually, you know what? That might have been a bit much. Like, I get that you're talking about Among Us, but at least say something less, generic?
What do you want? Him to specifically list the people who are doing this? You understand who he's talking about. I understand who he's talking about. What exactly is the issue here?
Of course, it could be that your literacy is fucking dead. No, not your media literacy, because all I'm doing is talking. And even if I don't have my script in the description, you can transcribe it or read the subtitles that YouTube generates to understand that I'm saying that the existence of people he's talking about is the generic complaint. Actually, let me check and make sure that the YouTube subtitles for that video actually say that. Hold on just a second. Hey, Chad, could you pull that up for me?
No? What do I look like to you?
Jonathan Felix Anthony Cena.
I don't know who that is. I don't watch your shitty anime.
He's not from... How do you not...
Fine, whatever, Tokusatsu or whatever it's called. The point is, I don't look like a bitch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm busy trying to dox a weatherman.
Wait, I thought the whole bit this commentary was built on was glitches in reality.
Bro, he is a glitch in reality. What kind of parent names their child partly cloudy and doesn't expect them to be cyberbullied until the sun explodes?
I just went ahead and checked. It does, in fact, say the same thing that I said in the video. Actually, one of the few times in the video that it actually says Among Us in the subtitles when either me or Sladester says Among Us, too. So, yeah, it's more correct than those subtitles normally are, actually, for that particular section. Cool.
Who's laughing now?
It's me. I'm laughing. Watch. Ha 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 ha!
Hi, quick question. Why do you laugh like Titus?
You are literally about to send me on my fucking Joker arc.
If you have to explain a joke, there is no joke!
How many pictures of Glam Rock Freddy do I need?
Gregory, we've got to... Wait. Fuck. Shit. What was my goddamn line? I don't know. Something about the bite of 87, maybe. Wait, I remember now. Purple Hippo.
You want to run that by me one more time? This is starting to sound like the time the Doodle put Foxias on my head for some reason.
I know. Hear me out, though. I remember the hippo guy told me something about Boon's training.
It reminds me of a time I was speaking to my good friend Orville. We were sitting on a park bench watching the pigeons. I was on the left, he was on the... Oh wait, was I on the right or left? Anyways, it doesn't matter. We were sitting on there watching the pigeons. And I said to Orville, "Friend, those birds are frozen." And he kind of looked at me like I lost my mind. But I reminded him that it was winter, and often birds will sit in a tree until they freeze. And then they sort of fall to the ground until the sun warms up and they can, move around again. So I said to Orville, "You might as well save those breadcrumbs until the birds thaw, because they can't very well enjoy them in the condition they're in." To which he asked what I meant, and asking what condition the crumbs should be in before he threw them to the birds, assuming that I meant the birds couldn't enjoy the breadcrumbs in the condition that the crumbs were in, when in fact I had meant the birds could not enjoy them in the condition that the birds were in, considering that the birds were frozen. So he took a moment and then threw his last handful onto the ground. I said to him, "Orville, why did you throw the breadcrumbs to the birds when I just told you they're frozen?" To which he responded, "The breadcrumbs are not frozen." Again, misunderstanding my words. I didn't mean to say that the breadcrumbs were frozen when I said I told you they're frozen. I'd been referring to the birds. In hindsight, what I should have said was, and this would make perfect sense, "Why did you throw the breadcrumbs to the birds when the birds are frozen?" He misunderstood upon my correction, stating that he didn't know what else to do with the breadcrumbs, and that perhaps, when the birds thawed, they'd still be able to eat the crumbs. So I said to Orville, and this is what I said to him, I said, "Orville, the birds may be dead."
Okay, I'm having trouble figuring out what that has to do with, anything going on here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So since I had just done a commentary recently with Boon, I figured that the best way to handle this would be to calmly and rationally ask for him to elaborate. What in the flying fuck are you talking about? I'm out here trying to ask you questions so that I can prevent a world-ending crisis, and you're over here talking about Tyson chicken or some shit.
Would you like some tea?
No!
Your loss. It's really good tea. Ooh, you ever mix it with lemonade? Do half tea, oh, it's really good. You should try it. Anyway, what was I saying? Right. Sometimes you can be so sure that you're correct, but either you missed a detail that was there the whole time, or maybe even it was just impossible to have all of the information because, well, the information didn't exist for you to know the real answer. A lot of people assume that every story is structured with a beginning, a middle, and an ending, but that's not necessarily true. Some stories never really end. After all, just look at Cody Rhodes.
He's like a wrestling guy, right? I think I heard Boon mention him once.
I suppose that hasn't happened yet. Well, I guess I just gave kind of a bad example then. Then again, examining the ending of the story isn't really all that important to the point that I'm making. If I'm making a point at all. Now, I suppose the more theoretically important aspect would be to look at the beginning or the middle. The people at the end don't always remember how something began, and oftentimes when you're listening to a story, the aspect that a lot of people want to pay attention to is both the beginning and the ending. They leave the strongest impression on people. But what happens in between those parts gets muddled, blurry. So sometimes a person may need to ask if they even exist in the first place, and sometimes they don't need to. It's not necessarily important what part of the story you're on, especially if all the story does is continue. Take yourself, for example. You're Wolfram the Third. Your father was Wolfram the Second, your grandfather, Wolfram the First. So, your grandfather's story ended, but that wasn't the ending of your family's story. In fact, if anything, it was just the beginning for your father, and the same with your father to you. And someday, you may give the title to someone else, and then that will be their story. And for that matter, there's stories within stories oftentimes, and really oftentimes the details just get lost in one another. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Not in the slightest, my dude!
You seem like a very intelligent young man. I believe you will, eventually.
And I think I have. It kind of just clicked what he was talking about.
Cool. That just leaves, an important question or two. Namely, why the fuck didn't he just tell you?
Oh, simple. I just wouldn't have believed him. I would have dismissed him as some crazy old man because he was going to tell me things that go against things that I thought that I knew, but there was actually no way for me to be aware that I was wrong. I didn't stop Boon from using the Orb of Chaos. In fact, if anything, I led him directly to it.
Anyway, the next video Boon goes after is Sladestar's commentary community rant, and I actually don't have very much to say about this one. All of the points are valid, except for one. And it may seem like a nitpick at first, however, the invalidity of this point is going to bite this video in the ass really hard later.
And as if it's engaging, that's subjective and something the analytics could show you to be true or false.
It's subjective and can be proven true or false. Boon, those are quite literally opposite statements. If something is subjective, it's an opinion and therefore cannot be proven true or false.
Oh, wow, I actually caught somebody with that for once. So, for one, the fact that you point out there's no situation where an opinion can be proven true or false is gonna bite you in the ass later. But allow me to explain why if someone's content is engaging would be both subjective and provable, using a concept that you tried to use against me. There's two different ways that something could be shown to be engaging, one individual and one collectivized. How do you prove if an individual finds something engaging? You ask them. If you don't trust that they'll tell you the truth about how engaged they are, maybe you ask them questions that, while not directly answering what opinion you really want to measure, gives answers that tell you that information. Whether content is engaging to an individual is entirely based on opinion of that individual. Therefore, it is subjective. So now we look at the collectivist way that something would be engaging. So when gathering data from a collective group, while each individual piece of data is their own subjective view, you can compile that data into a set of statistics that show a more mathematical approach to how engaged viewers are with the content. That is what analytics are. If viewers are generally continuing to watch Slayster's content, then that is a measurement that objectively shows how engaging it is, because it shows data of people engaging with it. So let's use a simple yes or no in terms of if content is engaging or not, even though it's not really accurate to how engagement works. If Slayster sees his videos and feels engaged, but the data shows that his viewers are not engaged, then that is his subjective yes that can be proven as an objective no to other people. Conversely, if I were to say that I am not engaged, but his data shows that his viewers are, then my subjective yet is proven to objectively be a no to other people. There's several other ways to interpret this particular statement too. Content being engaging can refer to the simple subjective concept of how interesting the piece of content is, or it can refer to metrics specifically relating to likes, comments, and subscriptions that come from viewing of the video. One of them is subjective and the other is solely a mathematical calculation based on objective data. We could also be talking about different audiences. For example, if Slayster's audience shares the opinion that his content is engaging, but the rest of YouTube doesn't, which would be proven by impression click-through rate, thus making whether content is engaging or not both proven and disproven at the same time while still remaining subjective.
And again, this may seem minor, but just remember this part, because a slip like this would be excusable for basically any other video except this one, and those who have already seen it probably know what I'm talking about.
So, funny thing about this one here, I did not understand how this was supposed to bite me in the ass when I watched your video. And I made the video that you're covering, so what the fuck does that tell you?
Oh, also,
Loudon is, for me now, is okay. He left a sour impression on me after watching his commentary on the first part to my Among Us rant, which I didn't like, honestly. But after hearing that his commentaries are really good, they are something I want to check out for myself.
Wait, so your only first-hand impression is negative, but you like him in spite of not seeing anything else? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, there's no joke I can really make here. Well, I'm sure I could make a joke. I don't know, put up a PNG of a chicken.
oh my god, it's Scootaloo!
I don't get it.
Hey, what the fuck was that?
I don't know. I don't care. Get back to the fucking commentary. I'm like 3 seconds from being able to have all of this guy's information, and you are fucking with me right now.
You know, man, you really shouldn't dox people. Is bad.
I'm evil. What do you expect? Wait, why do I even give a fuck what you think?
Because I'm such an insightful and influential content creator?
Wow, congratulations. That's the best joke you've told this entire time. Shut the fuck up and get back to the video.
Get up, Mr. Shore. I know you're not dead from just that.
I would imagine that you'd be more likely to underestimate me. Yet here you are presuming that I can tank a lightning strike. After all, Mr. Stormblood, I am just an attorney.
You can cut the shit with me, Planeswalker. I'm not fooled. I've met at least one of your type before. You send off a very unique electrical impulse. Although that kind of raises another question. You seem to be more than willing to take matters in consideration for my own incarceration into your own hands. Right down to trying to recapture me yourself. That is quite a bit more dedication and passion than I would expect from a simple district attorney.
What can I say? I care about my job.
Enough passion to be tracking down one of the top 5 most wanted criminals on this planet by yourself with no backup. And enough endurance to be able to go toe-to-toe with that particular criminal, who's known for being able to snap his fingers and obliterate people. But then again, part of that isn't true, is it? Your backup just hasn't arrived yet.
It's a bonfire. Turn the lights out.
Ayo, Henry, what's good?
Yeah, we've got a problem.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me. Can we talk about the fact that you're just bros with the district attorney?
He knows I can hear him, right?
Hold up a second, H-Dog. Babe, I don't really get what the issue is here.
Well, it's not so much that it's an issue, just that I wasn't expecting it.
Hey, not to butt in, but this doesn't seem like the appropriate time. We've got an emergency over here, and...
If anything, it's probably kind of beneficial for, you know.
Okay, I take it you didn't tell him I'm already aware of his secret identity.
We can talk more about this later. What's the deal, H?
Code Green, Boon's house. Get here as quick as you can. I'll hold him off.
You can't be serious.
Okay, Jake, you know I don't like it when you ask if someone's being serious. That typically means some shit's going down.
He's literally about to try to fry the house. I'm gonna hold him off as long as I can. You get here as quick as possible.
We're already on the way.
Jake? Are you okay?
Remember when you said you didn't think this was Elias related?